Is the doctrine of the Trinity logic contradictory? No. And we can actually prove that. I'm very passionate about this. If the doctrine of the Trinity were really contradictory, it would be false. I have a professor, wrote an essay a few years ago. I actually wrote an essay attacking him. For those of you who want to read my essay, it's in a book called Without Excuse. But in that book, I go after my professor. Scott Oliphant said that the Father and the Holy Spirit are one and two at the same time and in the same way, thereby attributing a genuine, real contradiction in the Trinity. That the Trinity is contradictory. It breaks the canons of logic. And if that's true, it's false. You can't say, well, my God is bigger than logic. That is pious nonsense. First, you were stripped of any sense of discernment. God has given you the laws of logic for a reason. When you walk into an auditorium and you hear a preacher saying something to you that's really stupid, like when Ken Copeland says, I'm going to command your hair to grow. But if he says that and it sounds moronic, there's a reason why it sounds moronic. It is. And you have the right to say so, and you're not impious for saying so. But if you say, well, my God is bigger than logic, and that means that God can be logically contradictory and still exist, then guess what you've done? You've taken that away from the common person. So now that person has to be beholden to that preacher, and whatever he says has to be true because, after all, he's a man of God, and his God is called into the ministry, is bigger than logic, and so you can't discern anything. You have no way of testing the Spirit. And what these preachers will often do is, if you hold up the Scriptures and test the Word against the Scriptures, well, guess what you need to be able to read the Scriptures? Logic. And since you've stripped logic away from the person, you can't even use logic to understand the Bible. You have been just totally decimated from any manner of discernment. And here's something worse. What if you go find a contradiction in another religion? Well, you've now given all other religions to say, my God is bigger than logic. Find a contradiction in the Quran, my God is bigger than logic. Pantheism is logically contradictory. The infinite one is bigger than logic. Apologetics is destroyed by this theology, which after all is a logos about the theos. Logos, logic, is destroyed. Now, how do I know that while God does transcend human reason, he never goes against it? How do I know that? Because in the beginning was the Word. As one philosopher translates that text, in the beginning was the logic, reason. Our God is rational, and therefore he's never going to break the canons of logic.